Don't use any names. Try and keep it clean and friendly. Yeah, we'll try and stay on topic as much as we can as well. What I've decided to do in this is, because the topic was about teaching groups, and we have covered teaching groups in a few other recordings, what I'm going to do is just really open it up, and I'm just going to go through the training website where all the group teaching notes are, and just work through it and see what questions you guys have got. You're quite welcome to jump in at any time with a question and let me know. Just stick your hand up and stop me anytime. Really what we want to do in this one is just try and find where you guys are having issues with the group teaching. The group teaching, that kind of, just to introduce it, it's one of those things where you will never be perfect. There's no perfect group performance. You'll have great times. It's a bit like playing guitar. You'll have good days and you'll have bad days, but overall you'll get better. But what will happen is you'll walk out of a group session or a shift that you've done, and you'll feel some days that wasn't so great, but your students will think it's great. And I don't know if you've ever done gigs like that, but I have, where I played the gig and I wasn't happy with the performance, but people who were there will go, man, that was great, and genuinely telling you that was great. And then other gigs where you thought, I played really well, and the audience going, wasn't your best gig, Dave. I've seen you do better. And I don't know if you've been to that experience, but I have. So sometimes we're not the best judge ourselves, but generally when you're group teaching, don't be too harsh on yourself, because the impressions that your students have are often very different to what you have. Just try and be consistent and keep trying to improve. Just stay aware of what you're doing. So before I even start, are there any questions? Does anyone want to throw it out there? Because I'm happy to just go for any questions if you have any. Okay, cool.
I've got a few questions, Dave.
Okay, go.
As always.
Yep.
Well, the first one was, I was listening to the Turn Your Worst Students into Your Best hangout, and you mentioned a couple of students that couldn't be grouped. You mentioned depression and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if there are any more examples, or if you could elaborate on those examples as to what happened, whether you took longer to group, whether you didn't group them, that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, cool, yeah, good question. There weren't really many students who couldn't be grouped. I could put it down to, I think I actually calculated some 3% of the students that I took through the intros were not able, they didn't go through for whatever reason. So 97% of students were able to be grouped. Obviously some group better than others, some take longer to kind of sync to a group. Some of them sometimes have to move 2 or 3 times. But as far as kind of situations where you can't group someone, it's really just like the general public. When you go out there are certain people who have actual conditions, whether they be physical or mental, who can't participate in the same things as everybody else. And I think those exceptions are obvious, but most people can. So short of some extreme example, you should be able to group them. And generally, especially with kids, parents are aware of their own children and what their own child's limitations are. You're not going to get many parents who are going to turn up with a child who has severe autism or some condition, and they're going to say, here's my child, you teach them guitar, and I'm happy for them to go into a group, knowing very well that child will just totally fall apart in a group situation. So parents know their children, so it's very unlikely that you're going to get a situation that is not already put to you. Does that answer the question, Ben?
It does. If we do have people who we're confident we can't group, should we, well, obviously can't group normally, should we try and group them with other smaller groups, or consider the private, or are you saying probably best to try and recommend them to someone else?
It really depends on the situation. It's not a question that I can give you.
Yeah, it's not a generalised answer.
Yeah, we're talking fringe here, and you're always kind of aiming for the middle. Any business, any band, you think of anything really. The most popular bands, popular groups, popular whatever, they're kind of aiming for the middle. They're not trying to please everybody in whatever they do. They just really aim for that middle ground. And that's what we're doing. We're kind of aiming for the person who sort of fits they can learn in a group, they're socially functional, They don't have any severe problems of any kind, so yeah, they can generally be grouped. Outside of that, you've just got to make a call, and it's really not going to be much on your business, because what happens is as your business grows, then more and more people who actually know you. See, people associate, and you can look at, there's tons of studies on this, but people associate with people who are like them. But even when they come into groups of other people, people change to fit certain groups as well. A great example is obesity. Obesity, actually, they found it to be contagious. That if you hang around people who are obese, then the odds are 50% chance, 7% chance that you will also become obese within a fairly short period of time. And this is just because the people who you spend your time with influence you, the places they go, the kind of things that they say and think, and the way they behave. So when you're teaching a certain kind of student and you fit into this kind of certain demographic, they start to tell their friends, they influence their friends, who end up enrolling and coming to you as well. So that's where the kind of the viral effect comes. It starts to build. Believe it or not, we all have something in common. We all play guitar. We all like teaching. We're all fairly sociable. We're not too egotistical. We're not too shy. We're not too extreme in anything really. We're a kind of we fit. I'm not saying we're all the same exactly. We're all different in our own ways, but we do come under a certain kind of demographic, and we behave in a particular way. And that's what happens with groups. When groups come together, they form in a certain way, and so the students who you have and you enroll will have friends who will be of a similar nature, and that's how your business grows. So that's where the early part of growing your business, my real point here is the early part of growing your business is the most difficult, especially with growing your group. So yeah, keep aiming for that middle ground, stay consistent, and you will end up with, surprisingly, a lot of students who all are happy to learn the method and follow you and work with you. So is that good? Get the answer? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions? Did you want to throw up before we move on?
I've got about 2 more, but I'll wait till the end. Wait my turn.
Okay, all right. Okay, Lalo, did you have a question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hand go up. Yep.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay. I've had a few inquiries from parents that have children with autism, and I was already teaching another older kid who was 13 years old with autism, but I was confident that I could keep doing this, but the boy, I don't know if it's maybe the way he was raised, but he would not do what I would tell him to do. So I would try everything what I knew about autism. So I would take into account to be patient, take into account to use bigger pictures and so on, and go slower, just to make sure we had a good connection. But in the end, it came down to that. It seemed to me like the child was spoiled. So when I tried to get him to do something, neither the mother or I could get him to do the exercises, and he said, "I'm not doing that," and that's it. So I made the call. I said, "Okay, I think we're going to stop the introduction course here." We only did 2 lessons, and that was it. But I've had an inquiry now from another lady who found me through Google Maps, and there's in their Scout group, they've got a few kids that have autism, and I've agreed to have an assessment with them. But they've been making a lot of inquiries, like sending emails and so on. And when they asked me if I had experience, I said that I've got one other student. I didn't go into it, but I just said they need more support from the parent and from the teacher. And then they asked about how the lessons are delivered, and I said initially one-on-one, but then we tried to get him into a group. So now, having hear you say what you've just said and so on, I'm just concerned whether I should not take this type of inquiries on, or whether
I wouldn't have any problem with assessing them, because autism, it's a huge range. Some kids have very mild autism, so they blend in very well. Other kids, have extreme autism, which is totally out of your range of capabilities. So yeah, if you don't commit yourself, you just say, look, just be honest and say, look, I don't have a lot of experience with children with autism. I do have one other child that I was teaching with autism, but I'm quite willing to have a look at him or her and see how it goes. If it doesn't work out, I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you that I'm not up for it. Yeah. So that's really what I'd say there. These kind of, it sounds like maybe you've tapped into a local kind of group of people with who are connected through autism, like parents and so forth. So it might be something, if you know that's there and it's something that you can sort of learn a bit more about. You might even be able to run a group with parents involved. When I'm thinking like that, I'm thinking, okay, these kids with autism, I don't know a lot about autism, but the parents obviously do, because as a parent with a child with autism, you start to know a lot. So I would just say to the parents, I'm happy to help, but I'll need you to work with me because I don't know enough about the topic, but I'm quite willing to give it a go. And if there's a couple of kids who want to do it, let's bring them in and let's have fun. Because a lot of the time, the parents' expectation is not high. They're not looking for you to, get the same results that you would from other children. All they're looking for is to try and give their child different things that they can do. They don't want to leave their child left out of the world, and I totally understand. We don't want to do that either. So if you could create, a group where you could do that, then I think the word would spread. Because remember, people work in social groups. So parents with a child who have autism, they connect up with other parents who have children with autism, and then before you know it, you've got 4 or 5 groups running with kids who have all got autism, and that's great because you become they'll come from anywhere. They might come from the other side of Sydney just to come to you because you're a guy who specialises in helping kids with autism to learn guitar. So tapping into any kind of avenue there, especially when you can do something that's good like that. And if you just be honest, don't tell people that you're an expert with kids with autism if you're not. Just tell them what you know, and do some research as well. Look on the internet. There's plenty of videos on YouTube and stuff that show you how to handle different situations and so forth. Yeah.
Okay.
I only had one student myself over the years who had extreme autism. I had a few students who had sort of mild autism, but they were no problem in grouping. They were fine. But there was one guy, and he really, he wouldn't look at you. His eyes were always down. Sometimes he was just totally somewhere else. Like you couldn't talk to him. You couldn't communicate with him. And if I was trying to teach him as a normal student, especially in a group, it would have been very difficult. But at that time, I was still teaching him privately. That was years ago. And the mother just sat there, and she was great. The mother was just so happy. And we didn't force anything. All we did is through a half-an-hour lesson, maybe 5 to 10 minutes of it, he was actually doing something on the guitar. The rest of it, he was sort of off somewhere else. And but that was fine by the mother. She just liked the whole routine and giving him a chance to do it. And apparently, sometimes when he was at home, he used to get right into it. So it was really benefiting him at the time. And that went on for probably about 8 months that he was learning altogether. And and I think it was a positive experience for him. And certainly, I got a lot out of it. I enjoyed it. So. Okay. All right. So I'll just go through on the website. I know you guys have been through it, but if I just sort of run through it, then we've got this video that people can come, especially new teachers that come on board, they can go back and go over it. And then as we go through it, if you want to ask questions, that's fine. Just jump in, like I said. But the first thing that I talk about there is obviously the introduction, and then the evidence behind group teaching. And this is really important because most people just have this conception of group teaching. You're either teaching private or group, and group is just about making more money. That's what they think. Put more people in a room and charge them all, and you'll make more money. But it's actually not the only reason. We of course we're trying to leverage here, want you guys to earn more money, but there's actually a lot of benefits to you guys earning more money. And if you hire teachers and grow your schools, to the teachers getting more money, because it means you're going to attract better people. If G4 Guitar Schools teachers earn more than other teachers, guess what? Everyone will want to become a G4 guitar teacher. So you'll have them lining up out the door to try and get in and be a teacher with G4. And that's what we want. We don't want to be just another music school, just another guitar school where they get paid, low rates and, and really not making much money and working hard for it. So what we want to do is not only pay them well, but we want to support them as teachers. So we want to give them all the training, give them all the tools, give them everything. So it's a great experience all round for them and help them fill the groups. So part of the understanding that is to understand the benefits of group teaching. And so can anyone give me some benefits rather than me just rambling on here? Can someone tell me a benefit of group teaching? I know you know some benefits. Okay. I can't see you, Ben, so but
my webcam's having a bit of trouble, I'm afraid. I don't know if it actually works anymore.
That's all right. Well, I'll start with you, Ben, just because I can't see you. If you just say, and then I'll go to the other guys. What's the benefit to group teaching over private?
One of the main ones I always say that we don't seem to cover as much in the G4 kind of materials is that there are skills that you can't practice if you're not in a group, like playing in time, harmonising, things like that, and the just general ensemble skills.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly, and yeah, you're right. We should sort of make more mention of that because they're skills they're things that can easily be taken for granted. Learning to play in time. The classic story I give is that we used to jam a lot, when I was a teenager, and there was this guy who's got some amazing classical piano player, and everyone used to rave about him. And so we invited him along to one of our jams and said, "Yeah, come along." He couldn't keep time. He just couldn't stay in time with the band. As amazing as he was and all the things that he could do, he couldn't keep time with the band. It was really weird. But kind of these basic skills of playing in time and also, just the idea of being aware of other musicians around you, not just being kind of closed to what you're doing, is a big benefit.
Training your head to multitask.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and most guys who play guitar, especially young guys, want to play in a band. So learn to play with other people, and why not do it right from the beginning so it's just a natural part of your playing. So, Lalo, did you want to throw something in?
Yeah. So what was Ben saying that we should take into account the things that you can do as a group? Was that what he said? Was that like harmonizing and things like that?
Yeah, you're just talking about kind of the benefits of when you're in a group, such as playing together with other students, which things like learning to play in time, learning to harmonise, just generally being aware of the other players around you, other musicians.
One of the things that I noticed, I've just put, I had a group of 2 girls that knew each other, they were friends, and I had another student that has been like for about 3 months or so being on his own. And when I started gradually preparing them. As soon as I got someone I can put you with, I will. And the time came, and they knew each other from school, so they were a bit reluctant to be together. So he is the boy that they knew from school, and last Wednesday was the first time. And it was at the girl's house, one of the girls' house, and the other girl couldn't make it because she had a school camp. But in a way, it was good because it wasn't like the 3 together at once. Now the 3 are going to be next week.
Yeah.
But what I did notice and what I found challenging is that the girl that was at her home, she was looking at me like she was bored. I don't know if that's the right word to explain it, but I had to quickly say posture, this, that, and focus, and she was like constantly switching off. And
right, yeah,
and
yeah.
that kind of thing was kind of new, and I'm thinking, oh, how am I going to keep them focused going forward?
Yeah, yeah. So that's good, because one of the things, and I was just looking at it earlier about the bored student and the bored look. With bored students, when you're in a group, it's really, there's a couple of reasons that they'll give you that bored sort of look or say that they're bored, but the main reason is that they don't want to do whatever is being asked of them. Whether it's that they lack the confidence in doing, you're trying to get them to do something that maybe they're a bit nervous about, it's too hard. You know, it's a bit like, you think back, you know, teenagers, they're classics where you'll ask them to do something and they'll just go, oh, that's boring. What they're really saying is, I don't want to do that, I'm nervous, I'm scared, I don't like it, whatever the reason is, it's just their way of playing it cool, to sort of give you the bored look or I'm bored, so it's a way of getting out of it. But that's really, when you see that bored look, then you know often what you've done is you've struck something that they're a little bit fearful of, and that they need to really be doing. So in this case, it sounds like, you know, they don't want to have to sit up with the guitar, or they don't want to do whatever it is that you're asking them to do because they're afraid that they're going to make a mistake. And that's kind of very, how can I say, underrated in the sense that as teachers we don't recognise enough, and I know I didn't in my early years, that most of what you're doing is confidence building. That students who, for whatever reason, not participating in what you're doing, a lot of it comes back to confidence. They're not practicing. That means they're not confident about their ability to become a guitar player, or if they're not willing to do what you're asking them to do. You know, there's that lack of confidence because we don't want to. Nobody wants to be humiliated in front of their peers. So if we feel like we're going to be put in that situation of doing something in front of a group and we're not going to be able to do it very well, then we feel embarrassed. And it's okay if I said to all of you, okay, I want all you guys to pick up and play a guitar solo now. As you know, adult as all that you are, and as good a guitarist as I'm sure you all are, you're going to be nervous in front of your peers to play in front of this group, you know, because we all know guitar. And so you're like, oh, you know, I've never played in front of these guys, you know, I better prepare. So you might be tempted to go, oh, the guitar string's broken at the moment, or it's in the other room, or I'm not really in the mood now, can I do it later? So you use this kind of excuses, or I'm bored, to get out of it. So you just be aware of that, and it's not that you push them all the time. Sometimes you've got to push them, but it's just about being aware of it, and then realizing that we've still got to learn. You've still got to move forward. We've got to get over this and just find a different way, a different angle to get them to do what they need to do. So, and don't let it throw you. That's probably the most important point here, is that one of the things that I see, or especially when I used to be there and watch the younger teachers teach the groups, the inexperienced teachers, is that they would let the students kind of sabotage their class. They would throw them off. The students would do all sorts of kind of, we have to do this. We really have to do this again. Can't we do a new song? Can't we do something else? And the students were dominating the class and running the class, and the teacher was like, oh, well, and trying to justify. The trick is you don't justify. You just go, everybody up, 1, 2. Oh, do we have to do this? 3, 4. You don't answer their question. You don't justify it. You don't do anything other than let's go. Come on, Jack, sit up for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, well done. And they do it. They just get into it and they start doing it, and away you go. So don't let those expressions, bored looks, whatever, distract you. Stick to the job, and then they'll stop doing it because they realise that by doing whatever behaviour they're doing, so behaviours are reinforced. So whatever behaviour they're doing, if you react to it, then you're reinforcing that behaviour, so then they'll do it more because they know it works on you. Okay, cool. So, David, benefits to group teaching.
I find from that the pupils, after a while, don't feel nervous of playing in front of people at home and in the class. You gain confidence where I've taught one-to-one in the past. The pupils really anxious about playing in front of others. So in the groups, they don't do that anymore.
Exactly, and they get over it pretty quickly. That's what I think you're saying, and that's what I noticed, is that they would be nervous the first week or two, and often the ones who didn't want to join the groups, they would say, no, I don't want to join a group, but I'd say, look, just come along, trust me, it'll be okay. I'd build their confidence up. I'd say, look, you can do this stuff really well. You definitely need to be there. We need you there to inspire everybody else, whatever I said to get them to the group, and then within a couple of weeks, they were like loving it because they were actually afraid of the group, and now they found they were comfortable in the group, and their confidence was up. And yeah, then it becomes natural. Yeah, good point, Dave.
Yeah.
Joachim, can you hear me, Joachim? Yeah. Nope. Is he there? Can you hear me, Joachim? There you should.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would say when it's how to say they pick up. So when they are in a group, you pick up, you do more than you would if you on your own.
Okay, so you push yourself more when you're in the group.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. That's a big one. Yeah. The group will move at a faster pace generally than a single student. An individual student can just move at whatever pace they like because there's no one else there to pace themselves with. All they're doing is just moving. Whereas a group will tend to move at the pace that the teacher sets. And this is kind of a tricky one because kind of a poor group teacher, let me put it in that respect, an inexperienced group teacher, someone who's going to move at the pace of the slowest student. They're going to keep focusing on the slow student, and the class will really slow down. And the way that happens is that we get to this thing where the students who aren't keeping up get a lot of the attention, and the students think in the group that, oh, that's okay, I don't have to practice because in the group I'll get a lot of attention from the teacher, and the teacher's not really pushing us or expecting us to keep up with a certain standard. So the group really slows down, and what happens is your good students either slow down or they leave. So you end up with this slow-paced class. But if you can focus it more towards your faster-paced students, then your slower students will try and catch up. They'll work harder. And I've seen it many, many times where they start off slow, but then they start working because they want to keep up with the group. And you may feel this as well within G4, where you go on there and you see, all right, Joachim's up to 100 students. I've only got 40 students or 30 students. I better get cracking. Or he's been out there. Such and such just put up on the Facebook page. He did 10,000 flyers in the last 3 weeks. I better get out there and get onto these flyers. You feel that urgency, and you'll notice that with me that I make myself available for whoever wants me within the network. I don't waste my time chasing teachers who aren't working, who aren't fully keen. I don't go and look for you, but if you come to me, I'll answer your emails. I'll spend lots of time with you. And those of you who have been in the network for a while know that that's where I'll be there right behind you and give you as much as I possibly can. So focus on your fast-pacing students, and your slow students will catch up in nearly every case. If they're really slow and you want to give them something extra, go and give them a private lesson to bring them up to speed, but don't slow your classes down. Don't slow your groups down. Okay, Michael, what benefit can you give me from a group?
I've noticed just the friendships that are formed are a really good thing, especially with the kids. They start off being a bit shy or whatever, but then after a few months, there's a camaraderie going around, and that's really cool. I think just last week I had a student who his work schedule changed, and there was he had to come in on a Monday, and I'm not teaching on Mondays, so he had no option but to unfortunately go with another school. He was really good friends with another guy in the group, and he was really disheartened by it all. Just another benefit he mentioned too right there was it was good to gauge his progress against everyone. That's one of the benefits that a lot of them say, I really enjoy being in the group because it allows me to compare how I should be going, not necessarily what I'd be doing on my own. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Those 2 points are fantastic there, the friendships, because the friendships, as a teacher, when you're one-on-one teaching a student, then it's just you that they're coming for. You're the only reason that they're coming to that lesson. But if you create a group, then you've got, literally 4 more reasons for that student to be there, because, they make friends. And I've had, all sorts of things, best friends form, in groups. Guys that I played with when I was a teenager and was formed in a rock school in groups, I'm still friends with, and that was many, many years ago. I've seen romances start in groups. Lots of stuff go on in the groups, which is great, and that way it keeps them on going and motivated and sticking with it, because a lot of the time it's not enough just to be giving them stuff each week to practice. Sometimes they need other reasons, and friends, there's no greater driver than really having a friend who's doing what we do. And then the other thing, as you said there, is the pacing of yourself against other students, saying, okay, because I know myself that, and this is part of the reason I didn't just teach on my own at home. What I did is I worked in when I was a teenager, I was working for a company called Brashers, and we were selling retail, and we were like a sales team, and that's how I loved working. And then when I went and started teaching by myself, it almost drove me nuts. I did it for about 6 months, and I go, no, I need other people around me. I can't just be here by myself, and this is not how I work. And so that's why I opened a school, not because I wanted to make more money, I just wanted to have other teachers around me, so I could compare notes and we could work together. And that's really why I went on this whole thing of having schools. And that's when, obviously, it led to group teaching later, seeing that group dynamic. And that's why I'm here now, because the network is just really an extension of the ability to bring people together, work together as a team, and we'll get a lot more ideas growing. So it's all about teamwork. That's really what groups are. We've really covered just about all the benefits, but Trevor, have you got anything else that you could add?
I guess the one thing I thought was, for a lot of people, maybe it's useful to get the confidence to go into performing if you're actually going to be in a band or you want to get out in front of an audience. If you've learned in a group environment, you're already used to playing in front of other people, as opposed to if you only ever have private tuition.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's what happened for me. Where I was learning as a teenager, there was a rock school program there, and they brought me together with the other kids, and we rehearsed, learned some songs for 6 weeks, and then got up on stage. I was still pretty nervous on stage, but I was with a group of guys that I felt comfortable with, and getting up there on my own would have been a lot more terrifying than getting up there with 4 other guys who were all with me. So yeah, totally. And doing that learning in the group, I remember when I first joined that rock school and that group, I was very nervous, but it was the experience of playing with those guys that lifted my confidence. And then really, I probably wouldn't have been where I am today, who knows, but professionally I wouldn't have went on to have a career as a guitar player, which I did for quite a number of years, had I not had those experiences of playing with groups. And a lot of guitarists do that. A lot of people learn music, end up just sitting in their bedrooms for the next 20 years. Just a quick experience that I had is one guy I taught years ago who he'd been playing guitar for 15 years. He was a father of 2 kids, and I brought him in, and he'd never performed on a stage or in front of anybody in all these years. And he was a very good player. And I said, dude, you need to get up on stage. We're having a performance for our school in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Let's get you prepared for that and get up on stage and bring your kids. So he came and did that, and at the end of it, he just broke down in tears because he was so emotional. The fact that he was up there on stage doing it, he'd overcome his fear of being on stage and playing, and his kids and wife were there to see him. It was such an emotional experience, and this fully grown, big, bikey-looking guy in full tears in front of the whole audience. Okay, cool. So yeah, so there's a lot of benefits to groups, and the more you kind of realise this, the more you believe in it, and the less you are going to have this problem of parents who say, "Oh, I really want my child to learn privately, so they get a better lesson." More group is going to do them a lot better. They're going to get a lot more out of groups. So, all right. So if we move on from there, that covers.
Can I mention one more benefit, David? I don't think anyone touched this one. It's the authoritarian nature of a one-to-one lesson. So you're the expert and they're the learner. But in the group, not only is there less of that, but there's also, it's kind of hard to remember how hard things are. So when you have other people there learning it for the first time, they'll show you some mistakes that you might be able to stop them having a pitfall later, things like that. It's hard to remember how hard some of the things are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just that's such a huge one. There was a study done at Princeton in the US, Princeton Review it's called, and there's a guy there, I can't remember what his name is, but I've got it somewhere on one of the blogs, but he did a whole bunch of study on this sort of thing of working with small groups, and what he found was that exactly what you were saying there, that first point about the intimidation of the teacher. Students often find you very intimidating, whether you feel intimidating or not. They feel that way because here you are, the grandmaster of guitar, compared to where they are, just trying to string a few notes together. So they feel very awkward and uncomfortable in front of you, where they can get with one of their friends who's sort of a similar level, and they can go out after their lesson and get together on the weekends or whatever, and they can say, how did that go again? I didn't quite catch it. I don't want to ask. And I know that's how I felt when I was a teenager. My teacher, I was afraid to ask him things because I thought he would think I was stupid. What do you mean you don't know how this goes? But he probably wouldn't have done that, but that just was one of my concerns. So yeah, the intimidation factor is apparently huge, much bigger than we give it credit for. So, okay.
David, one question. In one of my groups, the reading skills fallen behind more than the other skills. Is it okay to dedicate more time to that, or say where you rotate the skills each week, maybe just to keep the reading as a skill each week until they catch up? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, and I would do that for sure, because you don't want them slipping behind so far on a skill that it just becomes a drag to where you realise that then they've just gone off it. You really, with the reading, what I found too is that you do need to go through periods that we do it every week. You might have to do 3 weeks in a row where it's reading every week, and that way you get them back into the routine, and then you might miss the 4th week, come back on the 5th week just to see if they're still going with it. Reading is like that. It's one of the things that if you drop it, it tends to fall behind. So if you find too that they're not doing the reading, that they're kind of getting stuck, sometimes there's a confidence issue. Again, it's where there's a particular exercise they're just finding too hard. So sometimes it's good to break that down and give them some extra exercises where you might even just write some out. Just grab some blank manuscript and hand write out a few exercises. Even get them to write them out. Just say, okay, I just want you to write a 4-bar exercise or an 8-bar exercise using only the notes E, F, G, B, and that way get them all to write something out, and then they can take it home or they can swap them. You can just each one of them writes one out and then swap them around the class, so different kids have different sheets, all with exercises based around what they're supposed to be doing. So yeah.
Okay.
A game that my daughter really enjoys is she loves drawing, so she likes, I get the little I don't know what they call them these days, but Etch-a-Sketch type thing, and just draw a quick stave on there, and then she draws the treble clef and then draws the notes, and then she plays it. So she can make up any notes she wants as long as it's within the notes that she knows, and then yeah, she plays it, and she loves that game, and that's again something you can tell parents to do.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Cheers.
Okay. I've got some other advantages there on the site, but I think we've pretty well covered it. Practice is something that goes sort of that we didn't really touch on there, but students are more likely to practice when they're in groups, and I found that just naturally, especially if you keep that standard of checking their practice every week and making practice a big deal, you're going to find that they're going to practice more. Groups tend to be more fun. If you throw a few jokes in there, have a bit of humour amongst a group, someone's going to find you funny. The other, 3 might, but one will probably laugh at your jokes, and that's okay. And so you can have more of that going on, whereas it's one-on-one. If you don't really connect with that particular student, it can be difficult. It just feels awkward. I remember teaching privately and thinking, oh no, I've got this student. They've got no personality. They never talk. They just look at me, or they're really shy, or this or that. Whereas in groups, you don't worry about that. They're just part of a group, because there's usually a couple of students in that group who can connect with that student where maybe you're not connecting so well. Okay, I'm just going to read a couple of the notes here before we move on. Lola, we touched on this on Monday during the sales hangout with Emma. It might be worth listening. Okay, good. That's cool. Just wanted to see if there's any messages there for me. and Ben's put there the reading flashcards would probably be very helpful for the parents. Should do a lucky dip with the notes. They know, have 5 of each note in the box, and then take them out. That's great, and that's what I do with Mia. Is that they love all these kid games, lucky dip. Okay, put your hand in. I've got like the letters from A, B, C, D, F, G. I get Mia to take them out. She lays them out in a row, and then she's got to play them on a guitar. If I tell her to play the scale, she doesn't want to play it. But if she can pick the notes out of a box and then put them there, then she'll play those notes in whatever order they are. And I don't have to put them in order. I said, now can you arrange them in order, A, B, C, D, F, G? And she can, and then okay, now play that. So she's happy to do it if it's part of something that the game. And one of the things with kids is that when we're talking parents here, not so much in the groups, they'll listen to you because you're the teacher, you're the instructor, you should have sort of control of the class. But with parents are dealing with their own kids every day. So one of the things to do with kids is get kids to kind of come up with the games and to participate so that when they feel a part of it, this is a little trick that I learned. It's actually a UK doco that I saw on getting kids to eat vegetables. I learned this some years ago. But basically what they showed was that if you get kids to help in the kitchen to actually make the food, they're more likely to eat it. So it's the same with the practice. If you get them to make up their practice and make up what they're going to do, they're more likely to do it. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next thing. We've really done well there. We've already 45 minutes in. So the next section is converting intro students to groups. So what I'm going to do here is just really go through and see if you guys have got any questions on these topics, because otherwise we'll be here for the next 6 hours. So I'll just go through these and just see. So converting intro students to groups. Any questions? Do any of you have any particular challenges with getting an intro to a group? Do you get resistance? Anyone?
I had a lesson yesterday. A kid who's 13, and everything started off really well. He's filled in the practice log, and then he came yesterday and he'd not filled the practice log in, and his dad's like, when does he start the group? They're really keen for me to put him in a group. And then I was saying, well, he's got to do 30 minutes practice a day before he can join this group, and the kids who are in the group are already doing 30 minutes practice per day. Could he commit to that before he joined the group? And so I didn't know if that was the correct way to approach that before committing him into the group. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Look, I think what you're doing is right in that if he's not doing the practice, joining the group. So how much practice is he doing? What's the log look like?
The log, it was consisting of like 20 minutes, and then like some days was like 30 minutes. So it was like alternate 20, 30 minutes for the first 4 weeks, and then this last week he just not filled the log in. And I said, have you practiced for this week? And he said that he practiced for 3 days, but he'd not had a chance to fill it in. But
okay.
from that week 4 to 5, I could tell in his playing that he'd not really done that much practice, over that week. So it was a little bit of a concern.
Mm-hmm.
And his dad didn't seem to know, if he'd practiced or not. So I was questioning his dad.
Okay. Sorry. How old is he?
13.
13. Okay. All right. So he's kind of old enough to know what he should be doing.
Yeah.
All right. Look, I would. The group. Do you have a group for him? Have you got one planned? And
yeah.
do all kids in the group practice?
Yeah. It's a really strong group, and they all practice.
Okay. I would put it to him. I would just say to him, look, I've got a group, and I know you're up for it. Build his confidence, because sometimes, a lot of the time, it's a confidence issue. Okay. The thing about confidence is that the more we build someone's confidence in that they can do something, the more likely they are to actually do it. So if I've done it. I've seen it many times where I've had a kid and I said to the kid, and I truly believe it, I said, do you realise how good you can be? Do you realise the potential that you have? You're only 8 years old. When you're 15, you could be amazing. Like, I'm serious. All you need to do is make sure you maintain this practice, maintain the skills, and et cetera, et cetera. And to an 8-year-old kid, 15 is like forever. It's like, they almost think that they'll never get to be 15. But what I'm doing is just building up the dream for them of the idol and who they can be. But what happens is that when you build their confidence in what they can do and what they're capable of, then they're more likely to go away and practice. So I never had the kind of approach that I was disappointed in you, or you're not, I know you're not doing this, so I'm not insinuating this, by the way. But I never kind of had that approach with a student where you weren't, because you're not practicing enough, therefore you're not good enough. What I did was that you have so much potential. I don't want you to throw it away. Taking that approach that I want you to do this practice because I know how good you can be. I know what you're capable of. I used to say to some of the kids things like, where we were in Sydney, at the shopping centres, sometimes around Christmas time, or often kids get there and they play violins and all different instruments and get money. And I said to the kids, who wants to play at David Jones this Christmas? And we were probably a couple of months out from Christmas, and they all said, well, what's that? I said, oh, you make lots of money. I said, you just go down there and play, and they'll put all money in your guitar case or your hat or whatever. Oh, wow, yeah, that'd be great. I said, all right, who wants to do it? And then they sort of, oh, I'll give it a try. Okay, let's do it. Who's up for it? To do it, everyone's got to practice, and they were so pumped. And I did lots of different things like this, but the kids were so pumped to be thinking that they were going to do this performance at David Jones and at Christmas time, but they had to do the practice. And I said, guys, you've got to keep the practice. And so they ended up doing the performance. One of the kids ended up busking all the time. Every weekend he used to go and started busking and making money. He was only like 10 years old. But this is, if you motivate them in whatever way that works, keep trying different things. Motivation is much more powerful than trying to make them feel bad or trying to tell them you have to practice. Because it's like, well, why do I have to practice? So let me throw this back at you, David. Why does this student have to practice? What reason are you giving him to practice?
Obviously, if he makes progress, then it's motivation for him. If he sees the progress, then it's going to motivate him to continue guitar and maybe practice more once he sees that progress. So
let me put you on the spot. I know this is throwing it at you, but you're going to learn. Okay, this is what this is about. So I'm the 13-year-old kid. I've turned up. My practice log is empty, and you're telling me why I should practice. Let's do it. What do I? Oh, sorry, Dave. I didn't practice this week. I was a bit busy.
Okay. So I'd probably ask why first, and what maybe got in the way of you being able to practice guitar.
Okay, so let's role play it. I just had a lot on this week. Yeah, I've got some school stuff to get going on, and we've got the basketball tryouts, so it was a bit busy. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so do you know that if you're taking lessons here, that you need to do 20-30 minutes practice per day? So you do know that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we need to sit down and revise the practice schedule just to make sure that you can maintain that practice each week. So let's start with Monday. Tell me your schedule on a Monday, and we'll revise the practice schedule.
Okay, cool. Okay, good. So, and that's good, like, because we've spoken about that before, and that's obviously part of what we think. You just go through the schedule, find out what they want. But what I'll add to it, and what we really want to do, is we want to motivate them. We want to get them excited about learning guitar. We want to go back to, I would always use stuff like, let me do it this way. David, what got you started on guitar originally?
Family members playing guitar.
Okay. Was there any bands or music that influenced you?
I liked the Beatles as a kid.
Okay, cool. Cool. And so, did you, when you first, the first songs that you were learning, were they Beatles songs? Did you want, is that what you wanted to learn when you first started?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. Right, so, and I know these days you probably listen to different things, but if you were a student of mine back then when you were a kid, I would be saying to you, okay, Dave, let's remember, what do we want to do? We want to play the Beatles songs. Okay, that's what we want to be able to do. Cool. Yep. And get you back into why you're playing guitar. Get you making sure that I'm touching on those emotional reasons why you're playing guitar. You're playing guitar because you want to play the Beatles. Okay. So I know that you can be, you can play these songs. I know you're going to be really good, Dave, but I need you to do the practice. Okay, I really need you to do that because it's not for me. I already can play guitar. You know, I know how to play guitar. But I want you to be able to do the songs and do the stuff you want to do. So, for example, and I might pick up a guitar and play, you know, whatever, you know, just whatever song they're into, Yesterday, or you know, any song that they really like, and then I'll go, okay, all right. So we want to be able to do this stuff. You want to be able to play this. And then watch them get excited and watch them realize, okay, yeah, this is what I really want to do. Bang, okay, cool, give me a high five. Bang, we're going to do this, all right? We're going to make it happen. This week I need you to do that practice for me. You understand? Okay, so I'm doing a kind of combination of making sure that now I'm serious and making a big deal about the practice, jumping up and down, which is what you're doing as well. You're making a big deal about the practice, so that's great. You've got that down. But at the same time, I'm also motivating them. I'm letting them know, one, that I believe in them, and two, I'm tapping back into those emotional buttons of why you're playing guitar. You know, if you want to kind of really get down to this, just go and, you know, people, they watch a movie. You know, my wife, you go and watch some romantic comedy, and by the end of it, she's in tears. It's like, it's only a movie, sweetheart. You know, like, but she gets caught up in the emotion of the movie. You know, and that's, people, we're emotional, so it's not hard to get people emotional, and emotion is what drives motivation. So you need to keep tapping into those emotional buttons for people. You know, if you come back to, you know, even while you're doing business, why are you doing this, Dave? Why are you building your guitar school? What's it all about? You want to earn good money. Why do you want to earn good money? So you can provide for the people who you really care about, which are your family. Okay, and that's the emotional bit for you. You're trying to do something so that you can give them, you know, a better life, give all of you guys a better life, make sure your children get good, you know, education, healthcare, whatever. You have these pictures in your mind, and it's the emotion that drives you to keep doing it. And it may not even be that. I'm just guessing, but it might be that you just want, you know, your friends and family to feel proud of you and say, hey, man, look how well you've done. You know, you went from nothing and now you're a millionaire, you know, with your own guitar schools across the UK, blah, blah, blah. So we have different reasons, but they're always emotional. There's always an emotional reason behind it, and if we can keep tapping into those emotional reasons for the students, they'll do their practice. Right. Cool? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Great. Okay. That was a good example. So converting intro students to group, just to sort of back up sort of make the point there on the answer there, is that we do. I would go ahead and put that guy in a group anyway, especially if we've got a really good group where they're all practicing. But I would do it telling him how much I believe in him, motivate him, and go, I'm putting you into this group because these guys are the best, and I know that you're up for it. For 4 weeks you were doing your practice. Okay, last week you didn't have a great week, but that's okay. Let's forget about that. Let's get you into the group next week, but make sure this week that you make up for that practice you didn't do this week. I want you to do 40 minutes every day this week. Can you do that for me? Make up for it so you're ready to go, because next week you're with the group. Pressure's on. And just getting back in the zone and back in the group. So. Okay, so converting intro to group. Then the next thing is the rules of group teaching. Has anybody got it? I'm just going to call the headings, and if you've got a question, we can go into it. Anyone got a question with the rules of group teaching? No? Okay, cool. Fantastic. Okay, how to teach students at different levels. This seems to come up a fair bit. Has anyone got any issues or any problems teaching students at different levels in a group? No? Okay, cool. I will add one point to the different levels, just because it's likely to be the one where you will feel challenged. the thing about, again, it's aiming for the center, is that when you're teaching students of different levels, what you're trying to do is just balance it to keep the group moving forward. Don't get dragged down on the students who are going slow. Pull them out of the class if you need to. Give them a private lesson if you need to. But keep your groups moving forward. Every group lesson, the students must be a step forward. Yes, Michael. Yeah.
I was just going to add to that. When like today, I had a private lesson with a student who is in a group, and he's actually more advanced than the others. So I found it helpful not just to pull aside the ones that are struggling, but to pull aside the ones who know they're more advanced as well. So you sort of get this little thing with them where you're like, oh look, I know you're a bit ahead. Look, let me give you some extra stuff to work on. And just when we're in the group, just remember that like it's good we always go back and review this. And like I say to them, look, I've been through this PGM book so many times, but I still go through it with you guys. I still practice it with you. And like it's more important that you get and just sort of like just reaffirm with them that that they're ahead. Because sometimes they think that you forget that oh, I've already done all this. So I found that's really helpful, and that way they're sort of on your side. And they help out with other students who are struggling. They sort of will go, oh, this is how it is, and they'll feel like their input is important as well.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's great because that's showing your experience, Michael. Because when you are working, it's like here. There's some of you here that have had a little experience group teaching. There's some of you who have had a lot of experience group teaching. But you're still here, and we're going over stuff some things that you already know, you've heard it all before, but it doesn't hurt to review it and, like you said, acknowledging. I mean, I know, and you guys know that I know which of you are more experienced than the others as far as your group teaching. I know there's certain who have plenty of experience and don't have many challenges with the groups, but it is important to keep reminding yourself of the things that are important, like the basics, to keep coming back to those fundamental basics and because you will find, even as an advanced teacher or an advanced guitar player, that you've forgotten some of the fundamentals, or you're not spending enough time on the fundamentals, that you're sort of getting ahead of yourself. You might be working on shredding guitar, forgetting how you're sitting, your posture, or forgetting your hand position. And that might be slowing you down or stopping you from advancing. All these little things. It's just, I picked up on a video recently about how, with the right hand picking, and I've been doing this stuff for years, and I know this so well, but yet it was the video that reminded me, hey, make sure you do your pick motion small if you want to gain speed, because if you're doing too big, it's not going to happen. It slows you down. But I'd kind of gotten a bit lazy on that, forgotten about it. But it was through a bit of frustration that, wanting to do a certain run faster, that I needed to come back and look at that again. So it's those fundamental basics that, I can go through the G4 guitar method myself, even though I put it together, and look at things and go, oh, okay, I need to remember that. I haven't been thinking about that. I forgot about that. Yeah. So great point. Okay. Okay, so I did put a section, but we've already talked about this. What about students who are bored? I won't go into that.
Can we get a couple of questions before we move on, David?
Sure, yep.
Well, Lalo's got one as well. I'll let you go first, Lalo.
Okay, yeah, just on what was just said, another thing to remind either students, whether they're fast or slow, is that when they're going to be playing in the real world with the other musicians, they're going to be at all levels too. So I would use that to say, I know that the other students are probably not able to do some things that you can. However, we are in the group, we can all play with each other. For example, I might be able to play better than you, but I'm still playing with you when we're playing together. So it's also learning about how to play like that. Exactly, because when you play music, you play at all tempos. So it's not it's not about just getting faster and faster and faster. We're not racing for the Olympics here. It's not an Olympic event. You play at all speeds, and some guys, they play fast so much that they forget how to play slow.
and when it comes to actually playing slow, they can't because they just haven't been practicing playing at slow speeds. So, yeah, I totally agree. Okay, you can play this at 180 beats per minute, while these guys are still sitting at 100, but that's okay. You can play at 100. You can stick with these guys and just really fine tune, the quality of your picking, because it's not just speed. And so that's great. Even when you're reading, all right, read through this. I know you can read this, play at the same pace as everybody else, but what I want you to do is put a bit more emotion into those notes. I want to hear a little bit of, vibrato on those notes and really, play it in a different position if you want to, play it all on one string, play the whole song on one string. So there's lots of things you can do to handicap them and keep them at that same level and still up the ante on them. It's this infinite number of ways, and that's why when that question comes up of how do I work with students at different levels, well, let me count the ways. So that's we could do it. We could sit here and have a whole 3 hours talking about all the different ways that we could do that. Excellent point, Lolly. Okay, Ben.
Yeah, it's with the grouping, converting from into a group. I know what I've always said to people is I use 3 criteria, and it's age, ability, and interests. I'm just wondering how much you kind of prioritize each. So after they're, say, 15, it doesn't really matter, does it? Whereas if would you put a 7-year-old with a 9-year-old, or would you more likely put a 7-year-old with a 7-year-old who's actually quite a bit better than them?
Yeah. Look, with age, I kind of have this thing where I will not put even teenagers up until 17 with adults, just because they're still kids in the minds of the law and parents. So you don't want to have fully grown.
Knock 15 out of the air there.
So we can keep that teenage together. Basically, if they're at school, they can go together. Like high school, they can go together. The primary school, then it does vary because if you put a 5-year-old with a 12-year-old, there's a huge gap there. It's unlikely to work. So it's kind of like, well, depends on the 5-year-old. Like Mia, my daughter, because she's been doing guitar, for a year and a half or whatever now, a bit longer actually. She's doing ukulele at school in the school group, and she's the only one who's 5. All the other kids, 7 and older. Right up until 12, but she's sitting in there nicely. She can hold the rhythm. She can play the chords. So she's an exception, but that's only because she's had coaching at home. And so there are exceptions though. You're going to get kids. I've seen it. You're going to get some kids come along. I remember this 5-year-old kid I had who was amazing. But his mother was from the Beijing Orchestra. She was a Chinese lady who came to Australia. But she was a highly trained classical musician, and she'd been working with him since he was 1 or something. So he could just, and this was a piano lesson, by the way. I had filled in for a teacher on the piano, even though I don't play piano. I just filled in to really help out. But this kid was amazing. I can't explain it, but he was really, really good. He could just open the music and away he'd go. So
is this the one who'd sit there for a minute and look at the paper and then just play it perfectly?
Correct. That was him. No mistakes. No mistakes. He was a freak. But he wasn't a freak. He just had been trained very strictly from a young age. It does depend on the student, but generally, I look at that sort of 3.5, 4, maybe 5 together, and then I look at sort of maybe 5, 6, 7. Together are okay, and then sort of 8 to 12 is okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Kind of plus or minus 1 from each age group.
Exactly. Look, I had a couple of kids. I had a couple of exceptions. I had one kid who was only 10, and he actually joined the adult group. But he was so keen. He used to go home and practice 2 hours a day. He was just crazy for the guitar, and so I put him in the group, and all the adults were he went into an adult group, but that was only because. One of the adults he knew, they were like a neighbour, and it was okay. The mother was all good.
Connections and rapport building, yeah.
Yeah, there's no issue there of him being in with strangers or anything like that. He was quite comfortable. His mother was quite comfortable with it all. So.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. So Michael's just said that, yeah, my groups are either 7 and younger, 8 to 12, 13, 17, yeah, or adults. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's a pretty good breakup. And would you use senior checklist?
That's a 10-year-old.
Look, for the 8 to 12, I had the odd class where I did odd group where I did senior group checklist with them, but not before they'd been through at least a few of the juniors. At least the first 3 juniors, I would not have put them on to a senior. I would never go straight to a senior checklist with say an 8 or a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old even, without having been through some of those junior checklists.
Good.
All right, cool. All right, so just so you know, we're going to go for 90 minutes, so we've still got another 20 minutes. Okay, so the grouping strategy, the main thing about the grouping strategy, and feel free to ask questions, is really don't expect your groups to be perfect. Remember that it's you almost like a record manager, sorry, an artist manager or a band manager, where you're managing different acts and you're trying to get it all together and make it all work. And that's really what you're doing. You're going through and you're bringing a bunch of students together and you're going, okay, we need to get along, we need to work. I know you're better than this guy and you're better than that guy. You know, I remember seeing interviews with U2, I think it was, and I don't know if you know anything about U2, but the drummer is, I think he was ex-military or something. He's a very, very good drummer, and he knows all these rudiments and military marches and the whole thing, and that's why some of those early U2 songs have those kind of military march sounds to them. But he's really the musician of the group. It's not the other guys aren't musicians, but he's a serious musician. And so, in a sense, when you can see him interviewing, it's almost like he's kind of tolerating the other guys, but he knows that they bring a lot to the band in different ways. Bono's the front man, and the Edge has got kind of the sounds and got a really original sound, and he works in well with his drumming style by being. You can see he likes it because he gets to be the leader of the band. He gets to tell them musically what they can and can't do. So there are different groups work in different ways, and if you see that the group is not working, and no matter what you're doing, it's not working, then move a student to a different group, and just try and look for a group where you think that they'll work. So don't try and make your groups perfect, or expect them to be perfect, I should say, and don't feel that your groups have to just stick with the way they are. You try it, you work it. If it's not working, you've been persisting for a couple of months and it's not happening, then try shifting a student to a different group to see if that'll work. And you will find you'll get different combinations of groups that work and groups that don't work. Okay. Now, what else I've got there? Getting experience. Think about learning to drive a car. Again, it's just one of the things that I hear from a lot of guys is they say groups don't work. I tried it didn't work. Well, if you try something once and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means that you don't have enough experience, or it may mean it doesn't work. But if there's other people out there who are actually doing it, then you can assume that it works, that you just need to get experience. So I don't think any of you guys have a problem with that, so I don't need to label that one. What do I put here? Your biggest challenge. Group teaching is the key to earning more, working less, and getting more results. So the whole idea behind your group teaching is that, when I talk about money here, I'm not just talking about you getting more money, you earning more and becoming, a higher paid teacher. I'm actually talking about the ability to reinvest into your business and reinvest into yourself, and that's through leveraging. And this is often, well, it's probably not talked about enough, and it's not something that people give enough credit to. But for instance, if you want to be, a really good teacher, you want to be a really good teacher really of anything, then to be a really good teacher, you need to keep learning. And that's why you're here, of course. You need to keep training. And you guys are investing in yourself. By joining G4, you're putting up money and you're getting educated, getting better at what you're doing and learning more and more. So this makes you a better teacher. Now, by going through your students, by leveraging your students, putting them in groups, then you're not having to work, if you're one-on-one, you're not having to work twice as much or 3 times as much to earn the same money and that gives you, one, it gives you more time, so you can go and spend that time to become a better guitar player, become a better teacher, and two, you've got the money to go and pay for coaching. You can go along to seminars. You don't just have to come to me. You can go to all kinds of training seminars and learn from all kinds of people. And that's what I do. Is I take the money that I make and I leverage it. I go back and put it into getting more and more educated and learning more. Not just obviously learning about teaching, but learning about how to run a business for one, how to marketing, Facebook, AdWords. How to build websites, how to do all these kind of things that are helping us and our businesses and your businesses grow. So by making more profit, the more profit you make, the more you can reinvest back into what you're doing. And an example, I guess, would be Google. You don't have to look at Google. Google could just stick with their AdWords campaign, what they're doing, their search engine and AdWords, and they would be making billions. And they can go and buy islands and buy countries, and and not eat themselves stupid and do whatever they like. They wouldn't have to work another day in their life. So why do they keep working? Why do they keep investing money into projects that 80% of them are probably going to fail? Why are they investing so much money into helping people in undeveloped countries and doing all sorts of stuff? It's because they can, and they've leveraged what they do to try and do things that they want to do. So that's see, Ben. So that's the thing, is that with your business and with your group teaching, it's earning more money is not just about you getting wealthier. It's about also leveraging and doing more and reinvesting back into your business. All right. So that's that one. How are we going there? Okay. Has anyone got any questions at this point in regards to group teaching? I think we've got really the guys here. I think you guys have got the experience here. So I'm not really, from what I'm getting as feeling here, is that you guys are pretty confident with your group teaching at the moment. I've really gone through the training here. Yes, Lalo?
I'm probably one of the least experienced with group teaching, but
Yep.
I'm happy to go along. But my questions have probably need to be directed at a different session, maybe, because I'm still like having to consider how I approach skills as a group, how I approach specific skills. You mentioned earlier about making a list of ways how you can deliver difficulty levels and so on. So maybe another time I wouldn't mind joining a meeting or something where we can discuss that.
Sure.
That topic.
Sure. You just let me know, and what I do is that with these sessions, by the way, is that any of you can nominate a topic, and then that becomes the topic. So it's like you can nominate it, Lalo, as being our session. We do a hangout around that topic, and then other people can join in. So that's kind of how it works. What I want to do here is just talk about, because I know some of you are hiring teachers as well. So what I want to do is just talk about how you can do this as a kind of an employer. And I know for those of you who aren't yet employing other teachers, but the position you as in the employer, the entrepreneur employing a teacher, how you can help the teacher with group teaching. So let me throw this. I'll throw this to Joachim. Joachim, what do you think that you should be doing if a teacher comes to you and says to you that teaching groups, the groups aren't working? Let's just say that they come to you and say they aren't working. What's your approach? What do you do? How do you help them? I can't hear you. You need to your mic's muted, Joachim.
I would ask him why it's not working. What's the specific problem he's having, and then maybe look at the training, go through that, and find out what we can do to fix that.
Okay, cool. So when let's just say that I'm I'm the teacher and I've come to you and I've said, look, that the group I've got Fridays at 6 o'clock or whatever, it's just not working. I've got 4 students in there, and they're just not practicing, and they all sorts of problems, blah 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 blah. So what you're going to say to me is you're going to break it down. You're going to ask me what the problem is, etc. Yeah, right. So that's great. But what I would do is I'd offer to observe. I would say I'm going to come and have a look at your actual group and see what they're doing. The other thing is, and this is kind of why I'm raising this point. The other thing is that you need to get in and prevent these things before they happen. So you need to really ask the student. You need to be doing a weekly session where you're sitting down with your teacher, whoever they are, with teachers in a group, and you're talking, you're role playing, and you're going through these things. Because you really want to be in a position where you never get caught out, where you never have a teacher come to you saying this group is not working out of the blue. It should always be something that comes up in your weekly meetings. So my sort of advice there is to have a weekly meeting. That would really be the answer to that. So, now, what about in the case? I'll switch to Michael. Michael, what about in the case of hiring a guitar teacher? How do you ensure that they're going to be a group teacher? That you're not going to bring them in and then suddenly find out after 6 or 8 weeks that they don't really want a group teacher. And I made this mistake. I took on teachers back in the G4 schools day where they said all the right things at the interview, but then when it came to the real teaching, they just didn't work out, and I invested a lot of time and money into them only to find that it fell apart. So how could I have avoided that mistake?
Well, I guess, you've already touched on it, but obviously from the word go, just sort of in the interview ask them what they think about group teaching. Do they think it's a good idea? Get their ideas first before you even tell them anything. Obviously get them to observe you teaching groups for some time. Ask them how they think it went, and then obviously you've got to observe them teaching groups as well. And obviously I think, it's when I haven't really had that experience yet, because when I had Tim, he was mainly teaching private students. But I think obviously ask for feedback too from the parents and students, so that when you're not there, you can find out how the groups are going, and I think you just got to be on top of it. I think you just got to be in the situation there, making sure you're observing every now and again, and making sure they're comfortable doing it.
Excellent. Okay, cool. So I'll throw this one to Ben. Ben, are you still there? Let's see if you're still.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, Ben. So, because I know you've had a look through a lot of the training, but this will be one left to field for you. Have you, if you were to hire a teacher to come in and work for you, would you start them off with private lessons, or would you start them doing group lessons?
Well, as Michael said, I'd make sure they saw a lot of what I did first. So I haven't even taught a group yet, but once I do start teaching groups, I'll make sure I get good at it, and then I'll take them into some of my best groups and some of my worst groups and say, why do you think these guys are, how do you think I've worked it so that these guys are being so good? Whereas these guys, what have I done wrong that means that I'm not? And hopefully they'll fix my problems. But if they don't, then we'll role play it and see how, and get as much detail out of it as possible.
Okay.
Role play seems the best. Like, the weekly meeting is just a chance to chat to them, role play it, and as long as you've made everything clear, like Joachim's advert was brilliant. The hiring teachers post.
Say that again.
The advert Joachim posted up.
Okay. Yep.
Am I misremembering that? Wasn't it an advert hiring teachers, and it's had things like must be willing to teach group. Oh, sorry, connection's bad, isn't it?
You're fast speaking. I didn't quite catch it. Yep. Okay, good. The advertisement you put up. Okay, yep, good. That was. I don't know if you've seen, but that's Joachim's taken a lot of that text from the website. We sort of went back and forth on it, so Joachim did play a big part in that. He initially sent me something, and then I sort of added to it and sent it back to him, and then we came up with that in the end. So another great example of G4 networking. So we sort of covered all the things that needed to be covered. Okay, so the point here is that yes, and you said it exactly right, Ben. You want to introduce them to group teaching first, not private teaching, not doing the intros. You have to know that they can handle the groups. If they can't handle the groups, if you can't get them to manage the groups, then they're not going to work out for you. And the mistake that I'd made before is I got the teachers to start doing the intros. First teaching one-on-one, thinking, well, if they start with one student, then they can build their confidence, and then they can slowly, go to groups after that. But what I found is they didn't want to let go of teaching one-on-one. That was their comfort zone. So if you bring them in and you start off them, they observe you teaching groups, and then you start gradually getting them to teach the groups, and then gradually backing off so they fully teach the groups. Then once that's all done, you can go off and do the intros. While they're teaching the groups. And the idea is really that they shouldn't need to do the intros. That should be something you do really for now anyway. There might come a point where you train someone up who does the intros, or you bring in another group teacher and sort of grow it from there. But ideally, you want them just teaching groups, and that becomes what they do. They do it every day. So, yeah.
I was just going to say, I remember one of the audios, you mentioned that some kids often are unhappy that you've got a new teacher coming in. So if they observe first, observe the best ones first, then observe the worst ones, then you get them teaching the best ones, then you get them teaching the worst ones. But would you not then try and get them to do, once you know that they can group teach, do you not want the intro so they build a bit of rapport? Because otherwise you need to give them lots of good notes on all the students, otherwise they don't really know what the interests and friendships are, relationships like that.
Yeah, look, I know what you're saying, and yes, that can definitely work. But once you get it right, you kind of get this balance in that you've got someone doing the intros who's very good, and really that's where you as the business owner should do it for some time. But what happens is that you're really good at handing them over to the other teacher, and you can even bring the other teacher and introduce them if you want. Having that kind of handover, because the problem is that the teacher who's the group teacher, they want to be really earning good money, and they're not going to earn good money if they're doing intros all the time, because it's one-on-one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Groups, yeah. And for you, the group is really just setting them up to join the group. And if they have a problem going from the intro to the group because there's not enough rapport there, then that's just something that hopefully through the growth of your school will be less and less. And that's what I found is that, as we grew, the school grew, it really didn't matter because a lot of the time they were going into groups with kids they already knew. So there's a lot of connection there. Cool. Trevor, can I just ask you a quick question? Have you're doing group teaching now, or you're doing one-on-one?
Not yet, no. I'm basically still at the mentoring phase at the moment, so I'm kind of working my way into it at the minute.
Cool. Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so that's why I'm not going to sort of pick on you because I know you're just here to learn and observe and try and. Trevor's at the observation stage, if you like. If Trevor was one of our employees as a teacher, he would be just observing what's going on here for now, and gradually he'll become more and more into it. Especially as you get more experience, then you'll have things that you can raise, like challenges and questions and so forth.
I was just kind of curious, seeing as we were stopping anyway, like the sort of transition from doing the introduction into the kind of group thing. I know you mentioned about sort of starting with 2 or 3 people to begin with. I mean, if you've only got the sort of one student and you're going into group, you just start the group with the one student. Is that, I mean, that's sort of effectively private tuition anyway, really, isn't it? Until you get more students joining. I mean, how would you, how do you sort of build it up, really, I guess? How do you transition from the one to the other? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. It can seem at the beginning, and I remember that stage very well, because when I first started G4, I had obviously no students. I had a school in a different area of Sydney, and I sold it actually to my brother, and so he wasn't uncomfortable. I actually went off for 2 years and had a break, but he didn't want me obviously coming and opening another guitar school down the road, which I wouldn't do. So I went to the totally different area on the other side of Sydney, because that school was right down south, whereas I went to the north and started a new school. Nobody knew me. I had no reputation. I had nothing. So I started from scratch. So when I started, I was a bit concerned, like what you're saying here. What am I going to do? How am I going to build groups? Because I'm not going to teach private. I decided that this was the model that I was going to go for. So what happened in the beginning is, I think in that first month, I got about 10 students, and obviously there were different ages, and some adults and some teens and some young kids. So there wasn't really much grouping going on. So I just made groups of one. So it initially started off as, I had a 4 o'clock time on a Tuesday, I think it was, and maybe it wasn't, I can't remember exactly now, but just let's say Tuesday, 4 o'clock, and I had a student in there who was maybe 8 years old, let's say, and then I had to sort of, and the parent would say, I'd say it's a group, and I just charged them group rate. I didn't charge them for private. I said that I'm building my groups at the moment. I'm only just establishing here, so you're going to get these lessons one-on-one just for now, but there will be someone joining you very soon in the next couple of weeks. And I remember there was one student who ended up almost, I think, 2 months without anyone else joining them, just because of the kind of time or whatever. And the mother said to me, she said, when are we going to have someone else in the group? We really want someone else. We signed up for group lessons, and she was actually a little bit annoyed with me because as her child was getting private lessons, but paying for group, so she wanted the group. So, but anyway, they filled up. It started to snowball, and then as the word got out, it literally went viral, and I went from having this kind of 10 students to having 20. It was really what Emma was talking about the other day, about it doubling every month. It was practically doubling the student numbers, and so because one student would tell another student, and one of the things, and hopefully I can sort of share this with you guys and teach you more of this, but one of the things that one of my strengths is getting referrals. I was always very good with students to get another student to come and sign on. And so whenever a student would enroll, I would say straight away, have you got any friends who want to play guitar, who are learning guitar? It wasn't a sell. It was it's much better if you have a friend learning, because you're both going to then, you're less likely to quit. And I would say that to parents. And often what we would do, and Emma's really good at this, and she's brilliant actually, where she'll get the whole family enrolled. She'll just say, look, if one of you does guitar, you might as well all do it. Because that way you can all sort of have fun and all be learning music, and it's a family thing. And so she would often sign at least 2 kids, sometimes 3, sometimes the whole family. And that was just one of those things that if you learn how to do that, then you're going to really build your business fast if you know how to get referrals. And so to answer your question, is just start with groups of 1, and as the students come through, then just keep putting them into groups. And what will happen is you might have 2 groups of 1, and where they kind of weren't at the right level, but then one starts practicing a lot more than the other, and you start to see that they get to the same level, and then you can group them anyway. And that kind of thing happens as well, especially when you've had a student, you've gone through the intro, you've had them for 6 weeks doing group, or like just a group of 1, and their progress is not very slow. And that's what I found, is that private students, their progress was much slower than my groups. The progress of my groups was literally 3 times faster than private student progress. And it might have been partly me. Maybe I was just more enthusiastic about teaching groups. Maybe I just had more energy when I taught groups than when it was easy for me to get lazy. Teaching one-on-one, by the way, is that you end up teaching a lot more hours. So you get tired. You're working 5-6 days a week, 7 hours, 8 hours a day teaching one-on-ones. But when you're teaching groups, I was literally teaching 15 hours a week. So the rest of the week I wasn't teaching. So it was very easy for me to go in there and just go hard for 5 hours, and then I was done. It's like, all right, I'm off. So there was more energy, and maybe that's why they were progressing faster. But I think it was a combination of things. So when you have those students, you'll actually be motivated to go out and do more marketing and to get the ball rolling quicker, because you want to get people grouped. So does that answer the question? Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Excellent. Okay, we've come to the end. So as Joachim said, you have to give more with the groups. No choice in it. Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Yeah, as Joachim said, if the group demands more of you, you can't get lazy with groups. It's like playing in front of a packed crowd. You can't get up there and just go, oh, I'm just going to sing a song. Hang on one sec. Yeah, no. They want you to be full on. They want your energy. So yeah. Okay.
Okay, quick yes/no question before the end, Dave.
Yeah, sure.
Not entirely on the topic, but I've been having lessons with some of the students, and they're talking about their practice diaries. Obviously, we're kind of aiming to run them, and when I get to the groups, I'll make it clear that we are entirely aiming to run it like a perfect practice session. But they've asked whether they can fill the lesson time in as in their log. Would you say no? Because I try and say, well, the best practice session you'll have is after this lesson. At the end of every lesson, if you can get half an hour in, then you'll get the most value. But if they don't practice that day, if they practice that day in the lesson, can they put that half hour in, or should I say no?
Like I don't mind them logging it as practice, but
Okay.
was maybe it helps them to turn up every week. I don't know, but they can't do that lesson and then go home and think they can't do practice. They've still got to go and do their practice that day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Make the point. Let them put it in if they want.
Yeah, you can put it in, but if you're going to add it, then on these days you need to do an extra half an hour. You need to do an hour on your lesson. So so not too concerned about that. If they're practicing every other day, then even if they don't do that day, if they're practicing 7 days a week or 6 days a week plus their lesson, then that's good enough for me.
Good.
As long as they're picking up the guitar every day, that's the main thing. Yeah. Okay, cool. We'll leave it there. Thanks, guys, and I will see you at the next one. We're having one on Tuesday again. Paul has nominated one on Tuesday, so I think it's around the same time, but I'll let you know for sure.
Yeah. Was that UK, Paul?
Yep, UK, Paul.
Good.
Yep. All right. Okay, guys. I think that's sorry.
You guys again?
The topic, just before you go, I think the topic, what do we say, is teaching young children. That's going to be the topic on Tuesday. Okay. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Joachim. Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you, Trevor.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Video.
Okay, bye.
Right, see you guys later.